Welcome back to our kindergarten through 8th grade general music PLC discussion of differentiation. In this segment, we're going to be talking about whole group differentiation. This is a lot different than your administrator is probably used to seeing, but for us as musicians, this is something we do all the time. So we're going to talk about how to differentiate whole group when you're performing on instruments, when you're performing by singing, and when you're performing movements. And I'm also going to go over strategies for helping your administration understand what whole group differentiation looks like in the music classroom. So when you're playing on instruments, there are many ways that we can differentiate when we're performing as a whole group. Many arrangements have parts where we are not playing in unison, and these parts may have varying levels of difficulty. Maybe it's an ostinato that is longer than another one. Maybe it has more pitches. Maybe it has an advanced strategy like that crossover bordune I've referenced a couple of times. Maybe there is a more advanced rhythm. So you can use that data that we've talked about in segment 1 and put your students on these different parts based on the skill or their understanding level that day. Again, these are not static groups where you've got one group of students who are always going to have the most advanced part of the arrangement, but you also know that you've got some piano players in your class and some people who have a better understanding of how to play the instruments and that physical movement. And so you can place them on the more difficult parts of the arrangement, whereas some students who need maybe some support can play just a running bordune. So they're both getting to play the instruments, but varying levels of difficulty. Each instrument itself also has a varying level of difficulty, so you can scaffold those instruments to prepare students who may not be ready. So maybe some students are ready to play an entire scale or a pentatonic segment on a xylophone, and maybe some students need to work on understanding how one pitch fits within a melody, so you can give them a single pitch instrument like a boomwhacker or a handbell. And maybe some students still need help with the rhythm, so you can hand them an unpitched instrument to work on the rhythm. You can invite some students who feel ready to add an improvisation section, but maybe not require this of all students, or maybe a solo. You can ask students to play either the whole song or part of the song based on what they feel comfortable and what they're able to do. And then with all of these, you can hit on different learning styles simultaneously. So for instruments, you can maybe on the projector on your PowerPoint or whatever it is, give them a visual representation of the parts, whether it's the lyrics or the rhythm or the actual notation on the 5-line staff. And then you can also provide verbal cues for ostinatos, such as the very famous "Won't you be my friend?" So the visual representation helps your visual learners, of which I am absolutely one personally. And then those verbal cues help those oral learners. And of course, we always want to practice on our body percussion beforehand, which can help your kinesthetic learners. For whole group differentiation with singing, you can also hit these different learning styles. So for oral learners, you can echo rote sing, where you sing and then they sing after you, or you can immersion sing, where you sing the song several times and invite them to sing part of it when they're ready, once they've heard it. You can provide the lyrics or the notation for your visual learners. And then for your kinesthetic learners, you can add some sort of movement, whether it's sign language or movement that goes along with the lyrics to represent it so that they can move their body and kind of internalize the lyrics that way. And maybe even the melody and the rhythm that way as well. You can also differentiate by providing copies of the music to students in different ways. So maybe you provide a full notation of either the rhythm or the 5-line staff melody, or even an octavo where they get to see multiple parts at the same time. Or maybe you hand them a sheet with just the lyrics, and that's a different way to differentiate based on their skills and needs. You can assign students to more complex parts, such as maybe a part that has like a wider range, they sing higher, they sing lower, or maybe you assign them a harmony part that's more challenging than just singing the main melody. And then you can also invite students to sing while playing an instrument, which is a difficult skill to do, especially for our younger students, to do both things at the same time. And then for other students, maybe you can ask them only to sing or only play an instrument and not to do both at the same time. For movement, You can modify dance steps for individual students. My example in the last segment was the do-si-do, where they are circling without turning their shoulders and partially walking backwards. So you can modify that dance step by just telling them to walk in a circle where they do get to turn their shoulders. That's one example. I often, when I'm teaching a dance, like a folk dance in a line, I'll often select students who I know will be able to either behaviorally or conceptually understand the movements that I'm asking them to do. And I'll invite them to be the head pair to demonstrate it as I'm teaching the movement to the class. You can also, if you feel like you need to, employ strategic partnering or placement. So like if it's a line dance where they have a specific partner, maybe ask two specific students to be partners with each other. And that can go back to your heterogeneous grouping where you've got one student who either behaviorally or conceptually is able to stay with it, partner them with a student who may need more support. Or then you can also do homogeneous grouping where you work directly with a student who you feel like might need more support. Or maybe you have several students who need more support, so you put them at one space in the circle or in the line so you can kind of help them all together at the same time. For your visual learners, you can write out the steps on the board. And then for your oral learners, you can call out the movements verbally so that they know what's coming and they can hear and listen for those cues. So when we think about our administration, there's different ways that we can help them understand what this looks like in the music room. So we can explain to them that music, when we're performing it, is often performed as a whole group, as an ensemble. But even within that, a professional orchestra will have first violin and second violin, and they'll have different parts, and you have to audition to get into those parts. So helping the administrators understand it from that standpoint. I'm very explicit in my lesson plans, and I will say whole group differentiation, different parts in the arrangement. Assign advanced students to the advanced part in the arrangement. And then you can also, at the beginning of the year, especially if this is a new administration, you can kind of talk through this with them and then say, why don't you come in for a lesson while we do this and while we rehearse this? And so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So those are different ways to help your administration understand what we're talking about with whole group differentiation. A lot of students or a lot of teachers and administrators hear that whole group of differentiation, they think it's impossible, but really it's not. And it's something we do in our music classes all the time. So this is the end of topic 5, differentiation. If you have any questions or any further ideas of how to differentiate with your students, I would love to hear about them in the comments. Thank you so much.